here. So, oh, thank you. Thank you, Julie. Good point. So we've had a celebrity pop on by, Jen Hardy, everybody. Jen, I met her. I was a volunteer for her at PodFest. I went because Heather Zeitzwolf was one of the keynote speakers and has a podcast. And I wanted to go support Heather and got to do volunteering and met these amazing people. And Jen, I would love it if you could just share a little bit about what you're up to, because to me, this is so exciting. You've had massive growth.
I will share. Okay, so yeah, if anybody wants to go on YouTube, reach out to me because I found apparently somewhat of a secret. So what I did was I thought, hey, a long story in 1 minute. Wouldn't it be fun to do shower thoughts in the shower? Nobody does that. So I put on a robe because this is no sexy grandma weirdness. And I don't use any fancy equipment. And I just take my cell phone in one hand and the shower nozzle in the other. And I say things like, why do we drive on a parkway and park on a driveway? And 500,000 views in 3 months. And now I've got 250,000 in 4 months. So we are rocking it. So, and I also interviewed a judge, and because of that, I got all my subscribers, I got monetized, and now I do a bunch of court things. So today I'm interviewing I'm going live at 9 actually on my channel, with a woman prosecutor. She was fired because she lied to a judge to protect a domestic abuse victim. And now she's running for the man who fired her. She's running against him in a prosecutor thing. So anyway, it's very exciting. And I'm having so much fun. And YouTube is a blast. And I love podcasting. I love it. We're the volunteer coordinators for PodFest. We love PodFest. And we did the comedy thing. Oh my gosh, with her. Oh my goodness, it was amazing. But what you get back from YouTube people, they talk to you and they give you feedback, and it is phenomenal. So
you're building like a whole community. And I didn't realize that there's a whole subculture, right? Like there's always subcultures that we're not aware of, but there's one of people who follow this particular judge, Judge Boyd, and she is very real and tells it like it is. And so.
Oh my gosh, Elaine, Judge Boyd's coming back to me on Thursday. I'm interviewing her again.
So. Okay. So yeah, to me, it's a great lesson in like putting yourself out there and being open to pivoting or the twists and turns, and who knows what's going to come of this. But thanks, Jen. That was awesome.
And if you have a weird idea that you are passionate about and everyone tells you it's dumb, you should try it. If it's a weird idea that no one else is doing, it might be something that everybody else wants, and everyone's being told it's dumb. So do the thing. That would be what I say.
I love that, Jen. And that's, when I first started doing comedy, I'm like, is this funny? I don't know. And I would have an idea, and then my inner critic would go, oh, that's dumb. And then I would see that joke on TV like a week later. So I knew like, oh, I am developing my comedy muscle. And obviously I didn't have the chops to be on TV when I was brand new, but go with it. So that's awesome. Awesome. Well, I would love to turn it over. So glad you guys are here. Julie has been doing podcasting for a while. She and I met in person for the first time in January, and she's helping me relaunch my new podcast because I had one a couple years ago and then put it on the shelf. And Julie, I would love for you to just give us some tips. I know people want to know, how do you get on more podcasts? What are the inside secrets? So give us the scoop, Julie.
I'm so excited to do that. But first, while everybody's still here, I know some people have to hop off early. Let's do a photo.
Let's take a picture.
Share with everybody. I'll do a countdown for everybody to get on screen and give us a smile or whatever you want to do. 1, 2, 3. Got it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Julie. Thanks for
So there's some people here who have been podcasting longer than I have, so I'm never going to say I'm an expert, but I've had so many people lately come to me and say, well, how do I get on podcasts? How do I be a guest on podcast? I did one, but I have no idea how to find more. And what is being a good guest? What should I be doing? What do I not know? So that's why Elaine and I talked about me giving just some of my tips that I've learned. Not everybody knows. Podcasting is its own world. It has its own lingo. So it's important to, know what you're doing before you step in and say, hey, I want to be on your podcast. So the first thing I will say, and this, I guess you could call this a super tip, as a podcast host who does a lot of interviews, I mentioned at the beginning, I have a podcast called The Story of My Pet. It's all about inspiring stories of animal rescue and adoption. So when I get emails from people asking to be on my podcast to talk about how health and wellness is important for women or how to do XYZ in your business, what do I know first thing? They haven't listened to my podcast. So my first super tip for anyone wanting to be a guest is never pitch yourself to a podcast you haven't listened to, because not always are you going to figure it out by the name or even the trailer. Listen to the trailer, listen to a little bit of an episode or 2 or 3, know who you're pitching yourself to. I mean, I think that maybe is common sense, but I've been approached by so many people, it isn't always, especially since a lot of times people are being pitched by, PR teams or marketing teams. So it's not even that person connecting. So obviously there's disconnect. So don't be that person. Podcast hosts are very busy. We have a lot to do to get podcast episodes out. Please make it easy on us when you're asking to be a guest that you're the right fit. But how do you find podcasts to be on? Well, obviously, what podcasts do you listen to? Do you follow them on social media? Do you interact with their posts? Do you comment? Do you DM them on YouTube or wherever it may be that you watch them or follow them? Interact with them, get to know them, see if it's something that someone you would even vibe with in an interview setting, right? Not every couple of people are going to work in an interview. Everybody does it differently. Everybody has different stories to share. So I always tell people, if you're listening to ones you like or would like to be on, interact with them wherever they are, whether it's YouTube or other social media platforms. Get to know them before you do any kind of cold pitching. And the best thing you can do is go to their website and see if they have a place where it says, want to be a guest, submit a form. That's usually the best first spot. And if people are looking, they're going to have links and spots on their websites for that. So always check there first, because some people are always accepting application and pitches for their podcast. The other thing I would say is research. If you have a story or content creator or expert in a certain field, research podcasts that talk about that. And there's a lot of different ways you can do that. Obviously, you can go into Apple Podcast or into Spotify and search, speaking, leadership, video, whatever it is that you want to talk about. But there's also a really great website I always recommend people use if they haven't heard of it, and that is listennotes.com. Anyone heard of that? Anyone? Listennotes.com lists every podcast out there, whether if it's active or not. It gives you great information. It tells you about the host, how many episodes they have, what kind of format it is. It lists reviews, all sorts of things that really can make you think, ooh, is this a podcast I even want to be on? And, do I feel like I'm a good fit for it? Well, you can really do some research and see. And also don't assume that podcasts are putting out new episodes. One of the things about Listen Notes, it'll show you the last new episode so you can see if that podcast is truly active or not. Because don't waste your time pitching to someone who actually isn't putting out any new episodes right now. Mm-hmm. So those are some of my hot tips, things I've learned from people asking me questions about being a podcast guest. Does anybody have any other questions to ask that I can answer, and other people here who also know about guesting?
Well, I just want to piggyback on that. It's really great when you can do research. And also, if there's a couple people, like I've been on probably 50 podcasts, and now I'm looking to up level who I approach. So I am listening to podcasts, and then I'm rating, reviewing, subscribing, following, because that is a great way that really makes a difference with all the keywords and for Google. And so if there's somebody that you're like, I'd love to be on their podcast, become a raving fan for them.
Yes.
That can help.
I've had people pitch me that way. They'll DM me or send me an email and say, hey, Julie, I love your podcast. Look, I gave you a review. I really loved this episode, or whatever it was I was talking about. And it's like, oh, okay, you're listening. You like it. You're engaging. That's somebody I'm going to connect with sooner than someone's just a cold email. I don't know them. I can't tell if they've listened. So those kind of things really make you stand out when you're approaching people.
Absolutely. Or you can also say, dear Karen, that episode when you interviewed Elaine, wow, that was powerful. Or, whoever, like when you can say, and you talked about this specific topic, I really love that. That shows you did some homework, and that's going to just help you so much. Another thing, and I have a handout, is you want to have what I call interview questions. Not everybody's going to have this, but these are great to have for when you go on TV, when you go on podcast, if you're going to a panel, and you want to have like questions, and they may sound very simple, but you can be adding to them, and you want people to ask you questions that are going to get you into your best stories. Like my number one favorite case study is Heather when she did la 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 la. Or why did you start your business, Elaine? Well, because it breaks my heart when people are only helping 40 people a year and they could be helping 40,000 a year because the world needs help, So you want to always have at least 8 standard questions that they may or may not follow, but it helps your host. And I like to have them on my website. I don't think I currently have them, but that shows. And obviously you want to have a bio and a headshot that's not 20 years old.
Yeah, I was going to say, Elaine knows this because she helps people become great speakers and get booked as speakers, just like with that type of book, standing at a conference and speaking, or a Zoom workshop. Have a one sheet for your podcast guesting. What topics can you talk about? What questions can you answer? What podcasts have you been on? With links, you can do, a PDF. You can do it on your website. Have somewhere to send them that they can see who you are, what you can talk about, and if you've been on podcasts before. And a great way to do all of this, I don't know if any of you have heard of or used Podmatch. It's actually an online system that helps match guests with hosts and hosts with guests. You can put your profile on there as a guest, as a host looking for guests, or both, which I do both. And it's really great. Alex Shapiro, who runs that, is amazing, and they're always coming up with new things. I feel like lately they've had so many incredible updates and offers. So that's a great way to kind of put all your everything in one place, list all that, and then use that as a way of networking and finding potential podcasts to be on.
And there's also Facebook groups. There's one called Be a Guest, Find a Guest, or Need a Guest. And my friend Pamela Plick, who some of you know from the Katerina world, she has gotten great high quality stuff from there. So, and
yes,
one of the things, if you haven't done a lot of podcasts, I would just go with like the sort of the low hanging fruit, because it's great practice.
Right.
You want to be on the low pressure ones, right? It's like everyone used to say, I want to be on Oprah's couch. And my PR person was like, no, you want to be on 400 couches before you get on that couch, And so go, if you haven't done any yet, I would suggest they're really not that hard to find. A little bit of sleuthing, and it's a great place. There's another really sweet guy. I met so many cool people at PodFest. And, if somebody's sweet and I love their mission, I'll do it, even if they don't have a big follow, because that's just part of my give, but it's great to practice. And I love doing it because, you practice, like, what happens when I'm nervous? Oh, my voice gets up higher. Okay, so I need to make sure I work out and drink room temperature water. Like, oh, I go in my head, I'm super critical. Okay, so I need to make sure I talk to one of my champions and not watch the news and not talk to my mother or whatever.
Be in the right mindset, in other way, and protect your environment.
This is what I say before every speech. Like, don't watch the news, protect your head and your heart. You want to be in a good state. I was editing today and I was very frustrated. And so before this, I was dancing and I was watching some comedy because I wanted to, like, I needed an adjustment, So awesome. So do you want to open it up, Julie, and see what people have questions,
anything to share that you've used that's successful? Feel free.
I'm going to put Heather on the spot. Heather has been podcasting for a long time. She does a lot of her own stuff, but you had some great success. You pivoted. Can you share a little bit about some of the things that you've done? Like, I know that you had people that became clients.
Yeah.
And
So, I mean, podcasting for me is, when you go into podcasting, you have to ask yourself, well, why am I doing this? Is it to promote my business? Is it because I've got a bigger mission that I want to get out there? Maybe I just crave attention and I want to do it. What is there a story that you want to tell? Do you want to, impact someone's lives? Like, ask yourself, what are the things you want to do? And a lot of times it's not about making money, but it could be about making money. But you have to ask yourself, is it about the downloads or is it about something else? So, we always, podcasters, a lot of them will say like, oh, well, what are your downloads? And really, if the right people are listening and you're getting the right impact from it, it really doesn't matter how many downloads you have. We're not going to be John Lee Dumas unless that's what your goal is. So think about why you want to do it. And I made so many connections. I mean, I didn't have huge downloads, but really it didn't really matter because the right people were listening. It was also a tool for my business. So when I'd have perhaps maybe a new client coming to me, or I was teaching a workshop, I could say like, listen to these episodes that I did. These are great teaching moments of this. I could highlight some of my clients on this show and let other people know about them. It was ways of me getting in front of people that I would have never been able to. So I interviewed some people that were like, people like in charge of these like big corporations. Like, why would they talk to me normally? Like, but because you have a podcast, suddenly people will talk to you. So it opens up doors. I've met the best people from podcasting. And even when I was kind of like between podcasts, which I am right now, I'm kind of doing a YouTube podcast, kind of trying things out. But I stay involved. And so is Jen, did she leave? So Jen is one of my friends and I'm involved in her groups, and she came to my thing yesterday. So you can meet really great people, and podcasters are very generous with their knowledge and their time. And it's not a real competitive type of environment. They're really open. And so if you're thinking about starting a podcast, I will tell you, no matter what, I've been to so many podcasting conferences, and it's the people that are just getting ready to get started are the ones that always win the microphones and all the equipment. I don't know if it's rigged that way or something, but they always seem to win. So if you haven't, go to a conference, and if for some reason, I don't know why they always win, but
but also a lot of podcast conference will offer free tickets or scholarships for newbies. I actually had a free ticket for PodFest this year through Buzzsprout, which is my host. So there's great ways to get in. And like Heather said, I just want to add on to that. Podcasting is the most welcoming, supportive, helpful community I've ever been a part of. And it isn't competitive, I think, because we all have such different podcasts a lot of the time, but there also is room for everyone. That's the great thing about podcasting.
Yeah. And things are changing and in flux. So it's always great to just be involved with people, and it helps you from feeling like you're in a silo, creating in a silo, because you want to be able to reach and talk to everybody. And there's opportunities like this to get together. So
right. Thank you. I love that. Yeah. When I was at PodFest, I didn't know what to expect. And I met several people who were terminally ill. And they were like, I just want to keep podcasting to give as much as I can for as long as I can. And I was like, whoa. And they were not making money, but that was like, and it was giving them life. And I just was so inspired by that. Another reason that everybody's kind of touched on, but we're all content creators. Wherever you are in your business, you're creating content to put out, to tell people who you are, who you help, what makes you uniquely qualified. Maybe it's for your business. Maybe it's, if you're like my friend Eddie, he does jazz, he's a comic, he's a realtor, he's like a Renaissance dude, but we're all creating content. Now we're all busy. So sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, I'm coaching people, I'm teaching, I'm helping my parents. Now I have to be a studio head. One of the reasons I like doing podcasting is then you can take the episode and you can chop it up. You can help promote, this is what I have in the handout that hopefully Julie can find and put it in the chat for me, because I'm not coordinated enough to do that at the same time. But you can support, like, just think about it. You just met this person and they're a host, and you're going to be their guest. So they're getting to know, like, and trust you. They're hearing your story. They've got your bio. They have your headshot. So now they can become a champion for you. And now you've gotten to know them. And so it's not a one and done, which is what I used to do. I used to be like, oh, well, that was fun. Next. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, you should be circling back to these people every 3 months. How's it going? Have you pivoted? What do you need? How can I support you? Who can I connect you with? It's such an opportunity to deepen these relationships. And then, you're in front of their people, they're in front of your people. What else can you do? How else can you leverage that? There are sometimes I have this wonderful person who helps me in the Philippines, and she's always like, Elaine, I need more stuff. Now I have oodles of content, but I'm not always organized. So sometimes I'm like, chop this up. So I'll just send her like, podcasts. And sometimes like, I don't even remember exactly what I said, but I know it was on brand. So just go with it, because I don't always have time. But it's a great way if you're stressing out about content to, it's one more way in your bag of tricks. And then you can also repurpose it, and then you can also repost it again. We don't have to be reinventing the wheel every 12 months. Right. And another thing that Heather taught me is you can test things. Let's say you're like, you know what? I'm bored with my topic. I really feel like I need a new topic. I really want to talk about la, 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 but I don't know if people are really interested in underwater basket weaving or whatever. So let's do it. Let's do an episode on it. Let's have a conversation, and you can do what we call social listening. Hi, Stacia. So glad you're here. Welcome, welcome. So you can give feedback if it vibes with people or not, right? So like,
Yes.
Heather, did you have anything that did you have an episode that surprised you when you were talking about, what you used to talk about on your podcast?
Well, a lot of times you think like, wow, this is going to be a really great one, especially like if you've got somebody that it has some notoriety, and then that's the one that falls flat. I mean, not falls flat, but it doesn't do as well as maybe one that had a different subject. So sometimes we are so involved in what we do that we think what we're interested in, everybody else is, and sometimes that's just not the case. So I've tried things out just doing lives on Instagram, and just to see how many people tune into the live, and testing it out with the guests that I might have, and just kind of seeing from there how it kind of goes and see what people's reactions are. And so there's different ways you can test it out that doesn't actually go into the actual podcast. So I'm doing that sort of on YouTube right now as well. So you can just kind of test it out.
And even
Awesome.
like that, when you're posting on YouTube Shorts or Instagram or TikTok, wherever you are, whatever is most popular, maybe make a podcast episode out of that if you're a host or a guest. Like, what people respond to the most, like those are the topics they would probably want to hear you talk more about on a podcast.
Yeah.
But it is true, because myself, I actually had someone from SPCA International on my pet podcast, and I thought, oh, this is great. This is huge. They're a huge organization. It was lower than ones I've had with local rescue organizations. So you never really know what's going to hit. Sometimes it's when it comes out, or how long it is, or, you just never, what time of year it is. Yeah. So just go with what you're passionate about and what you can talk about as a guest or in your own podcast, because that's what's going to make the most impact. It looks like we have a hand raised.
Oh, Frankie Ann.
Hey, first I want to apologize. I can't get my camera on today, and that comes from a producer of podcast. That's hysterical. So I'm on my phone. Anywho, I just thank you, everybody. I just wanted to interact with what's been said, that it's just so fantastic. But when I've been like directing and producing behind the scenes and watching, and I do work with celebrity, for the most part, I've been working with celebrity podcasts, but I'm open for anybody. There's nothing greater or less than in my world. But the thing that really pops for me is when the guests and the host are really authentic, that they're just okay with where they're at. And sometimes crazy stuff happens and you think it's not going to be right, but it's, first of all, editing can be done If you're going live simultaneously, you can't pull that back. Just don't air it or save it, but be authentic. And there's nothing better and there's nothing more magical than just going, uh-oh, I'm not feeling this right now. And just go with it and see what happens. And yeah, magic happens. Be authentic.
That's awesome. Thank you, Frankie. And she and I met through a headliner comic, and she's been, she's had a million careers, singer, dancer, quadruple threat, and she's in LA about to start a big thing that we can't talk about yet. But yeah, I've learned a lot from her, and I'm so happy you can be here, Frankie. And I also wanted to say Seema has a podcast, and Seema, do you want to speak to any of this or tell us a little bit about some of the things you've learned?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of things that you guys have said. One thing that I wanted to say about listening to the prospective a podcast host episode is to also get an idea on how the host interviews, what kind of energy do they have? Do you vibe with that or not? Because if you don't have that connection, or if you can't match with their vibe, then the whole interview process becomes really hard. I've been on some podcasts where I made that mistake of not doing that before, and it just didn't match, and so you're not able to do your best. It's a performance anyway, but if you listen from that perspective also, it makes it's a good way to prepare on how they interview us as well. The other thing is to practice what you're going to say. Sometimes if you're exploring something new, and if you are just starting out, when you practice out loud, not in your head, because it makes it very different on how it comes out, and then your voice changes, like Elaine, you were saying earlier, so you can get it perfected, and then you know where you want to enunciate certain things and make a bigger impact. So I think that's been really helpful. And then I have my podcast called Break Free to Brilliance. It's about entrepreneurs who've had transformational journeys, with the book or without a book, and this is what I guide them as well. And to remember to breathe and pause. You're having a conversation one-on-one. So the more, like you guys have already said, the more authentic you are, the easier it is. And breathe.
That's so great. And, I'm going to share. So I did Meisner work for years in New York and Austin, New York. And one of the rules is to focus on your partner. So when you're so focused on your partner, which will be the host, then you're focused on making them great. And you're 100% focused on being present with them. And it helps you feel less self-conscious. And so when you're just focused on making your partner great, which is another rule of improv, it helps free you up, and it's going to help you connect. Because sometimes, I'm an extrovert, but I have been interviewed by super introverts, and there were moments where it was really awkward. And one of the things that gets me through, especially like a long comedy set, is I'll tell myself, I only need 30 seconds. Like, instead of thinking I've got to make this whole long, perfect thing, I just think I just need one joke we can cut, So thinking of just like moment by moment, it's all about connecting and making them great. And then if you're a host, you always want to make whoever you're talking to great. And that can really help you just get out of the straitjacket of self-consciousness.
And what that came up with something, I think that research and understanding how the host is too, because not everybody is going to work. I've had some interviews that just went flat. I was like, whoa, I didn't expect that. But you also want to be a good guest after. So please, when we ask you to share your episode, put it on your social media, send out an email, your newsletter, your blog, your website, whatever. That is a way to get asked back and to be told to other podcasters, hey, she was a great guest. She shared it and she did a live with me on Instagram to talk about the episode. Those are ways that as a podcast host, I can say that's what we want, because we're spending an effort to put out your story or whatever you're talking about on the podcast. You supporting us and connecting us with your community is really important too.
Yeah, it's a partnership, which and when you can approach it, like, how do we make this great? And then, whenever the episode drops, sorry, I've got weird lighting going on. Sorry. Texas, and I don't have curtains in this room yet. So, so whenever the episode drops, if you can do a live within 24 hours, it's going to help boost that episode. And some hosts don't know that, but that is a great tip. And then, how else can we get this out? What else can we do? That's so great. And I want to make sure we've got so many fabulous, amazing, talented people. Please put your information in the chat. If you have a scheduler, we've got Seema with a podcast, and Karen, and Narelle is a badass Hollywood coach working on her 53rd book that's coming out. Stephanie's got a documentary we get to work on. Heather, God knows what you're up to, because you're just always doing 53 things. So exciting. Anyway, please make sure you put your information. Cheryl Stevens, amazing author, painter, artist. She hung out with Phyllis Diller. No, Phil, is that right? Yes. She has so many great stories. Marianne,
So why don't we take if there's any other questions, and then maybe the last 10 minutes we could do more breakouts so everybody could meet each other a little more one-on-one.
That is brilliant. And so Rachel B asked, does anyone use Podbean? I think we did when we first started my podcast, Still Human, in like 2020, but I don't think we continued.
It's not one that I really work with, but I've heard of it, and I've seen them at podcast conferences.
Okay.
Let's see, Leah raised her hand. Yeah.
Okay.
I was wondering, it's probably a basic question, but is there a minimum requirement for equipment to be on a podcast so that you sound good? And also, are podcasts done with video, or is it just audio?
It depends on the podcast. I record, I'll just say as my example, I record all my interviews via Zoom. I have not used them all, but I am now starting to put full video episodes of interview episodes on my YouTube, and those are getting a lot more views than just when it's my, the cover photo and the audio over it, but those are on YouTube too. I've never had a host tell me I have to have a certain equipment, but we do like you to, if you have an external mic, plug it in, because that's already going to be better sound than you talking into your computer or laptop.
Right.
So little things like that, and to make sure you're in an environment that has some soft things like curtains, stuff like that, helps it not be, so echoey. There are little things you can do to improve your environment, but I've never, as a host, and never had a host say, oh, you have to have this or this to be able to record with me. Most hosts that I know use Zoom and ask you to use a microphone and a few things like that. Anybody else want to share their experience?
Well, and I remember our very first guest didn't know this, but you want to have all your windows closed. So you want to have as much, with you, and if you can be plugged in, that's great, but you don't want to have 53 windows open, and you want to, that's just going to help you with the broadcasting, with the quality. And then I always tell people, be camera ready, because, podcasts are going towards video, and some people are still resisting it. But it's just good practice to be on camera. I know I teach it. And then I always think, oh, if I did my hair and makeup, I'm going to make a quick video. I'm about to shoot a podcast. Catch that energy.
Usually hosts will tell you if it's going to be video or audio only, but if they don't, just ask. Because I've been on both and didn't know ahead of time. So I'm always ready. But the thing is, even if they're not doing the full video episode, a lot of us are using clips from that video to put on social media. So I would always prepare to be on camera. And if you're not, like Elaine said, take some of your own videos after.
Yep. Okay. Any other questions? Should we go in breakouts one more time and get people to meet some more people?
Let's do it. Let me recreate them.
Awesome.
Okay, we will give everybody, let's do 7 minutes, and then we'll have 5 minutes left in the big group to share anything else or ask any questions.
So just introduce yourself and say, what is one thing you're going to do from being in this conversation, this environment? What inspiration, what is one action you will do? Some kind of connection.
Okay. Minute. Okay, it looks like we have a hand raised. Brian.
I was wondering, for the women's podcast event, do you invite men or is it exclusively for women?
Well, it's called the Women's Podcaster Party, but we allow anyone to join us. So please feel free to come. We haven't had a man join us yet. So be warned, it's going to be 99% women probably. But feel free to come and join us and network with all of us. Absolutely.
Well, I
Open
didn't
to
get
anyone.
to share a weird thing before in my first group, so I will share. I definitely enjoy being in a huge room with women rather than in a huge room with men. So
Woo-woo. Yeah, I'm like, if anybody
I
can
think
handle
that's a
it,
smart decision.
Dr. Brian can handle it. And we're gonna keep sharing the wealth. So like Jen Hardy has a podcast mixer. Cammie Lehman has a podcast mixer. I'm gonna be compiling more things so that I can, just help people get more connected, because there's a lot of amazing hosts looking for guests and vice versa. So,
And also we mentioned Podfest earlier because several of us went this year and met there, but Podfest also does monthly Zoom get-togethers. They call them Pod Lab. You can find them on Eventbrite, and they're free and anyone can join, and they usually have a guest speaker talking about something related to podcasting. So definitely look into that. Join the Podfest community group on Facebook. That's another great place, and you'll just kind of get connected from there to other groups.
and if you want to launch a podcast of your own, talk to Julie and Frankie Ann. And yeah, there's so much knowledge and heart in this group right now. It's like, whoa.
And make sure to put your links in the chat and click save chat so you'll have everybody's info. Just a little heads up for everybody. It's hard to get it while we're going in and out of breakup rooms. Anybody else want to ask a question or share?
Can I just ask, Karen, can you save me the chat? Because I can't do that and be on the phone and do everything. Thanks, Karen. And thanks for everyone. It was really fun. Thank you so much, Elaine, for
So
organizing.
glad you came, Narelle. Narelle is so talented and fabulous.
I know, right? Now, Julie, I have a question for you. I'm not anything adjacent to anything except just really boring straight female. Can I come to the group?
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks.
I called it the Women's Podcaster Party because I personally want to see more women share their voices in podcasting, but it's an all-inclusive community. Come one, come all, no matter what gender or non-gender that you use. Please join us, because the more the merrier, honestly.
I've just had no label. I got to get a new label. That's all.
Narelle, I feel like you don't need a label. You are so Narelle. You know what I mean? You're
Narelle is
like,
your label.
"Oh."
Narelle is her
Yeah,
label.
An international Wonder Woman, super
gorgeous, lovely, talented. I mean, yeah, there's a lot. I need an acronym. Maybe I need an acronym more than a label.
Okay. For sure.
How about
And
fun? Fun can be
Coco,
your
I
label.
hope that Coco, I want you to make sure you connected with Heather and Cheryl, because Coco was like, I want to meet artists. And I was like, girl, I got some artists for you. Or sorry, they, them. Sorry, I'm still learning. I apologize.
And
Okay.
Coco, I will connect you with a few people. I have some friends who are coaches for specifically artists and who have artist related podcasts. I will definitely send you some.
Nice. I'm also a coach for multi-talented artists, helping them to balance all the things and grow all of the things at the same time, as I'm a manifesting generator, and that's one of my specialties is all of the juggling. I'm also a clown, so the juggling helps.
Well, that's amazing. Oh my gosh. I think you might need to start a podcast about being a clown. That's one I have not
I
heard
have a
of yet.
podcast called Do Epic Shit. I'm not like doing it now. But yeah, that's what my podcast was called. And it's still on Spotify if you want to check it out.
Amazing. I love that.
Yeah.
Heather was a clown with her mother, which just cracks me up every time when I hear that story. And then she did protest cheerleading, which I think is so great.
That's
Instead
cool.
of the angry protesting, she was like,
Oh,
love
nice.
no, don't eat
Oh, we
meat
need to resurrect
or whatever.
that.
And Heather, I like how you have the wool dreads. I literally just took mine out.
I told you, right, Coco? I said, I have this friend who's had these crazy dreads and it's so wild.
Anyone else
we
have
should
a
definitely talk.
podcast they want to share? Anybody have a podcast they want to share? We didn't get to do a lot of that. If you're still on, you want to share, or one you'd love to listen to, Heather, go ahead.
Yeah.
So I'm like I said, I'm dabbling right now, kind of trying to figure things out. And eventually it's going to be called Savvy Frugal Vegan. But in the meantime, I'm also doing a live show called It's a Plant-Based Party. And it happens twice a month, and you just come on and you can be part of the party, and it goes live, and we just talk about plant-based food, something that you travel, anything that you want to contribute. And like Jen Hardy, she was just on the last one, and she's not vegan, but we were talking about her gluten intolerance and things like that. So you don't have to be 100. And the whole thing is that I'm trying to make it plant-based food more accessible for everybody. So it's not like you have to be 100% vegan to be on the show. So that, and I'm gonna just throw this out into the world. So it was very sad that Richard Simmons died, and I was always such a huge fan growing up. And I've been thinking about like I always identify as like, I'm like Pee Wee Herman, I'm like Daffy Duck, but I also see myself like Richard Simmons, and like I mean, he's a great man. I'm not saying like I'm like all these things, but but I've been needing to exercise, and I was talking to some other people how like I haven't been exercising, and I've been thinking about how can I do like a Richard Simmons kind of show for people to get them moving, but I'm having to deal with with all the copyright issues and things. So if anybody knows anything about that, so I'm thinking like maybe I'll do a playlist on Spotify, and then we can all do like silent disco. But if you want to do Richard Simmons-y kind of thing, like I'm thinking dolphin shorts and glitter and all those kind of things as an homage and all that.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
So if you want to join me, let me know, because
and Narelle was good friends with him, and
that's right.
Yeah, I was so sad to hear that. So yeah, no, sign me up. And then also, Karen, can you share about your fabulous, amazing podcast?
I would love to, but Narelle, did you want to say something first about
Oh,
Richard?
I just want to tell Heather, talk to me, because I actually know a lot about his copyright stuff, and like little tiny things like those dolphin shorts are all copywritten to his management company and stuff like he's got really he has and did have and does have very very stringent copyright. And Paulie Shore is trying to do a movie about him now, and that caused a huge lot of nastiness. And
that was he was terrible. I thought he was terrible at it, but
and before Richard died, they were fighting about it like publicly and privately, and it was just causing Richard so much stress. But my main thing I want to say is, you're not Richard Simmons, you're Heather. You don't have to.
I don't mean that it would be that I would be Richard Simmons. I'm saying that I would want to do something that's fun and inspiring,
right.
and get people moving. I'm not a it's like I'm not in the perfect shape, but I'm like, hey, like all of us have our issues, and it's like let's just have fun. So
I'm already in.
Yeah, do the implication of it, because I've just met thousands of those Richard Simmons fans, and oh man, they'll kill you in your bed at night.
Well, I don't mean that, and I don't mean that I would ever be Richard Simmons. And nor would I try to like imitate him.
They'll love the flavor. They'll love the flavor, because they're more vicious than Manson's people. I'm just really saying, like they really are. They'll come to Portland and kill you. So
okay, speaking about homicide.
All right, well we can do my version. Okay. All right, well we can do your. your version of it. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Your version is perfect.
Okay.
Perfect, perfect.
All right,
Okay,
Karen.
so my podcast is about trauma, and I have had survivors of homicide and their families on my podcast. Every different type of podcast any kind of trauma you can think of. I have all the certifications in trauma recovery, been a trauma recovery expert for 25 years. So if you know of anyone that's struggling and it's impacting their relationships, work, their health, their quality of life, please send them my way. Either I could coach them, put them on my podcast. I also run 3 summits a year. So I'm always looking for speakers, sponsors. So reach out. My email is healthrivedream@gmail.com. Thank
Thanks,
you,
Karen.
Elaine. This was lovely.
Oh, thanks, Karen. I've been on her summit. Been on her podcast, and I highly recommend her. Her work is fabulous. And, we all have trauma to a degree. So follow Karen. Okay, Rachel.
Okay, yeah.
Hi. Yeah, I am multi-talented crazy lady, abstract painter, healer, writer.
Love it.
I did a 16 interview podcast summit on all around autism and sustainability and healing with horses, nature therapy, things like that. I am a photography freak, so I'm on Instagram with my nature photos and my occasional little rants that I do. And so I did start a podcast on Podbean. It's called Infinite Possibilities. And I wanted to continue with the themes that I did with my summit. The summit has huge glitches, so you can only actually listen to 2 when you go to the website. It's greenablevillage.com. But if you guys connect with any of the things that I said, you can follow me on Instagram. I'm really huge introvert, so it's hard for me to get out there, but I'm forcing myself on there. So that's a good place to start to connect with me. I feel most comfortable there. I had my paintings up on rachelbakir.com, and I was doing really well as an abstract painter about 100 years ago. But that website is now down as well.
Okay, Rachel, what's the name of your Instagram? And I'll put it in the chat.
Okay, Rachel J Mama Bear. So RACHEL J as in jazz, MAMABEAR.
Okay, love it. Rachel J Mama Bear. That's pretty
Thank you.
distinctive. Awesome. Well, you're in a whole
Thank you.
room of crazy, fabulous, passionate artists, multi-talented.
I love it.
Yeah, you and Cheryl.
Yeah.
Cheryl has an amazing story, amazing stories. She lived Mad Men, and she's done amazing. Her portraits are gorgeous. And Frankie Ann is, there's so much talent. Oh my God, there's so much talent.
So Elaine, are you going to be doing this on a regular basis?
Yes, thank you. Yes, I love this. In fact, I would love feedback about what other topics you want us to talk about, because I know so many amazing experts, and I can talk about adding humor to stuff. I can talk about, if you have questions about speaking, I talk about video all the time, but I just love, half of my week I'm doing email intros. Oh my God, Karen, you have to meet Julie. Julie, you have to meet Karen. And I thought, Elaine, why don't you start doing this? And I want to do live events, but I want to wait till things calm down a little bit till my dad's on a schedule.
Only take on so many things at once, right?
So my dad had a stroke a couple of weeks ago, Eddie, and so that's been just a big learning curve of the VA and human and what and he's gotten stronger, and then but hours on the phone, right? I keep telling myself it's going to be comedy material, it's going to be really good content someday, and on Monday he calls and he goes, yeah, the VA call, I told him I don't need him, just take all that stuff, I don't. And I was like, So luckily the VA is so unorganized, they didn't acknowledge that. So I was like, yes. Woo!
Oh, we can find comedy in everything, even the hard stuff, right?
Gotta laugh. But yeah, I want to do this once a month. And so please let me know who you want me to bring, what other topics you want to cover. Maybe we can have, where we do breakout rooms and brainstorming. And I just love having cool people meet other cool people. Like my friend Eddie, we met doing comedy a million years ago. And then he came up to New York and we did comedy in New York. He met my mother. He's a flute player and a realtor, and now he's like a pickleball fiend. I keep begging him to teach me. Yeah, so lots of talent. And Tish is like nonprofit mama, but she just went back into real estate in Florida, and we know each other from a very cool high level accountability group based in New York, but there's people all over. So I know Tish, it's so funny how I feel like I've known you forever, but we've never met in person. So maybe Podfest this year. So awesome.
Yes.
But yeah, I would love to have Frankie Ann come back because she's done next level stuff. She's a director. She's done all kinds of Hollywood things and knows all kinds of Hollywood people. And yeah, lots of talent. And
if anybody missed this, let us know. We can send them the replay so they can hear everybody and what we talked about.
Sorry about the dogs.
Well, I have to hop off soon. Anybody else have any last questions or anything to share?
Last
Make sure
words of
you
wisdom.
save the chat.
I'm so glad I popped onto this, even though it was a bit confusing. I'm delighted to meet you and hope to see a lot more of you. Thank you
Awesome.
very,
Well,
very
thank
much.
you all for being here.
Thank you, Judy.
Yes, it was lovely.
Thanks, Elaine.
Awesome.
Thanks, Elaine.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everybody. This is so much fun.
Bye.
Thank
Have an
you.
awesome
Thank
night.
you for hosting. Bye
Can
bye.
you
Thank
continue?
you.
Sending you an email.
Thank you. Okay.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Elaine, I have great news I want to share with you when you have a moment.
Okay, cool. Bye.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
bye.
you. Bye, guys.